Hello, everyone, and welcome to my second installment of my Precious Publications collection. So, last time we talked about the book Forest of Fear that I was published in through Bloodsong Books with my piece, The Cat. Absolutely love that anthology. Again, I highly recommend you guys go check it out. Like I said, it is available in ebook and print editions. If you have Kindle Unlimited, the ebook is free, so don't miss out on that chance. Just search on Amazon Forest of Fear, Bloodsong Books. It's the first volume, it'll pop up, and I highly recommend it. It's still topping as a bestseller in 4 regions in the publishing world for horror anthologies, and I can't get enough of the work that's included in it, and I love the editor so much. But today, what I'm going to talk about is the anthology through Nightingale and Sparrow, who I've had my eye on for so long in my writing career. I've watched a lot of the work that gets published through them. They print beautiful chapbooks. They have so many anthologies that are released. Their social media presence is amazing. Their editors are amazing. They're based out of Pennsylvania, which really isn't that far from here in New York. And I love them. And I entered into their Halloween issue for 2019, and surprisingly, I ended up getting picked up. And I have a lovely story about that. But this is their issue that I managed to get published in, and that I adore, and I'm promoting the life out of. And it is called Nevermore. This is a really, really big literary journal. They are all gothic literature, so not necessarily horror. Some of them have a horror, like they're horror-esque, but overall, this is a gothic literature journal. So, my piece that was published in here, I actually opened up right to it. I'm just going to flash it really quick, as I did with my last one, is The Post. So this is my piece. It is a short fiction piece. Surprisingly, it was only one of 4 fiction pieces that were picked up for this anthology. So, believe me, when I ended up getting the list of contributors and the pieces that are going to be included, and when I ended up getting the proof copy to review, and I saw that I was only one of 4 people chosen for fiction, you can imagine how I felt. But I definitely love this. It's available on Amazon. It's available also through their website, their Nightingale and Sparrow site. There is an ebook copy. There is the print copy that I have here that I highly recommend. It's a little bit pricier because of how much is in here, but in terms of books and magazines, it's a reasonable price. I believe it's $18.99. Again, like I said, that's not bad. That's what you're going to be paying for a literary magazine, and if you want a really good gothic literature, like physical copy to read again and again, I highly recommend getting the print edition. And if you don't want the print edition, like I said, there is the ebook, and I believe there is the online edition as well that I think is free through their site. However, I encourage everyone to at least pick up the ebook copy. You know, every purchase really helps them out as a publication and enables them to keep doing what they do. And I always encourage everybody, if you can pick up, even if it's just an ebook copy for as little as like sometimes $1.99, even to like $3-4.99, just support small publishers, because it's what keeps them going. It's what keeps them doing what they're doing and providing for their authors. So let me get into the story about Nevermore. So I submitted to Nevermore back in September. They wanted to have this out for Halloween. They did have this out on Halloween. It was a wonderful Halloween surprise for me because I actually had 3 pieces come out on Halloween. So this being one of them, I think this was the one I was most excited for out of all of them. I loved Forest of Fear. I loved the other piece that came out of mine on Halloween. But at the end of the day, I think Nevermore was the anthology I really just was looking forward to the most. So what ended up happening was I submitted. There was about a month, maybe it was close to like a month-long wait, because I ended up submitting early. I submitted early in September. And they weren't sending out anything, I think, for like 2 or 3 weeks from the closing date of entries. They weren't reading anybody until every submission had been in. So I waited. I was anxious. That's what happens. Especially because I only sent this piece out to Nevermore. And there were a lot of other Halloween editions going on for other journals that I could have sent this piece to. And part of me was just like, well, if I don't get picked up, like, that's missing out on a chance and I'll have to wait again till next year. Unless I find, like, a horror zine that is open and taking a word count very specific, because Nevermore had a specific word count, and it's a word count that, unless another journal is asking specifically for, I probably wasn't going to meet. So, I ended up getting an email in their first round of submissions, saying that I had made the short list. Now, for those of you who don't know what a short list is, in the literary and publishing world, the short list basically says, we love your piece, we think that it's good enough to be published, but we have a lot of pieces that we can't decide on. So we're putting you into a short list so we can continue looking at your work and make our final decision from there. So, of course, now I'm more anxious than ever, because I'm like, wow, well, at least a rejection, I would have been like, alright, I'm not being included in this, I can go look elsewhere. Now I was shortlisted, so now my hopes were through the roof, because I'm like, well, at least I'm good enough. Like, at least the piece is good enough for them. They were interested, they love it, but they have limited room. And there are other pieces that they also like that are being considered. So, whereas before it was like, yeah, you have to stand out, now it's like your piece really needs to stand out, because you're down to the wire. Like, they took all their pieces that they loved, and now they're saying, now you really gotta, like, show us why we love it. Like, you really have to be a piece that they love to be accepted now. I waited about another week. Just about a week. And I was so nervous. Like, every day I was checking my email. And finally, I remember they posted on their Twitter, and they're like, oh, final responses are going out tonight. So I was at a convention in Syracuse, actually, for a book signing for my book, Into the Uncanny. And I remember getting the email and seeing Nightingale and Sparrow pop up, and I was just like, alright, it's either going to be really great news or it's going to be bad news. So I opened up that email, and just seeing that it was accepted made my whole day. Like, I was shocked. I was floored. So I was like, alright, like, I'm one of however many pieces that they're picking, and, you know, maybe they were deciding between a few. Well, come to find out, like I said, once I ended up getting the book, only 4 fiction pieces were accepted. They had gotten so many submissions, because I remember them saying how long it was taking them to read everything, because there were so many submissions. So out of all of the submissions that they got, I was in basically their top 4 that they chose to be published. So that's why Nevermore means so much to me, because it blew me away. And what's really funny about this piece, The Post, I'm not giving anything away, I'm not spoiling. I really do, like I said, recommend, if you can't buy a copy, read the online free edition. Check out my piece. Check out the other pieces that are in there. They're all really good. If you love Gothic literature, like, this is the mag for you. But the piece was very Sam Shepard-y. For those of you who have read Sam Shepard's The Buried Child, it was a play, Gothic, like a Southern Gothic play, and it was very much based off of those vibes. I was going for, when I read it, was like going to be a Gothic magazine. Like, that's all that kind of came back to my head, was like that buried child, like, sense of the South. So the piece that I ended up writing for this, called The Post, I remember writing, and as I finished it, I look at it, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to be acceptable. The main reason is because of underlying themes of, like, abuse and things that take place in the story. They're very, very shadowed over. You can tell, like, some things are going on, but it's not heavy, it's not prevalent. It's not necessarily part of the story, it just kind of plays into... It's not heavy in the story, but it plays into the theme of what ends up happening at the end. So, I had messaged my girlfriend. She was away... I believe she was away in Virginia visiting her grandparents during this time. And I messaged her, and I emailed the story, and I was like, hey, I need you to look at this, because deadline's coming up, and I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is going to be acceptable. So I remember she read it, and she's like, I think it's fine. she's like, well, what does the submission guidelines say? Because that's the big thing. I know a lot of submission guidelines, you open them up and they're like, no mention of abuse at all, no cursing, no violence, no drugs, no abuse to animals is one, like, at any form, no abuse to children, no abuse to women, no abuse, like, no, things like that, like, just basically, like, triggering things, because a lot of times, sometimes certain authors, not all of them, but certain authors out there, something that I've actually come across and have dealt with in my personal life that I don't associate with anymore. When you talk about, like, abuse and things like that in their story, they kind of use it as, like to their gain in the story, if that makes any sense. Like, they go over the top. Like, to them it's like, oh, well, I can use abuse and, it's driving this story, or they take it too far. They take it too far, and it's not subtle, it's very over the top. Like, I understand some stories need something over the top, if it's there with actual intent and reason for it being there, okay. But, like, some people just throw it in for the sake of it being there. And that's pretty much what I look for in the guidelines. It's like, they understand that some people, if they don't put these guidelines, they're gonna get stories where, like, things happen just to happen and just as, like, a shock value. So, I didn't see anything like this on the site. So I'm like, alright, we'll see. Sent the piece out, and like I said, I'm surprised that was one of the top 4 that were picked to be published, especially because I had all that concern and worry over something that in the end didn't matter, because, like I said, it was so subtle, and it really was not heavy in the story. It was just kind of like there in the background, and it made sense. It was there for a reason. So, going off of everything else with Nevermore, I want to wrap this up. The big thing with it that, like I said, I loved everything about it. The editors are amazing. I had a wonderful experience with them. They were awesome in getting the proof copy out to their authors to look everything over and make sure that their stories were formatted right, that everything in their story was right, there were no typos that, like, the author found after the fact. I mean, their editors went through, their editors looked it over, but sometimes you really do need an extra set of eyes. I'm sure you guys have noticed in some, like, big-name published books, there are typos. I believe Harry Potter actually has quite a few. One of my friends actually went through and highlighted all the errors in Harry Potter that editors missed over the years, and various editions that were printed. Also, the big thing is about, like, names. Make sure that names are spelled right. Make sure your bios haven't changed, because they always include your bio, they include your photo, they include just lots of stuff about you. And that was the big thing, is my name is always spelled wrong. Always. Nobody spells my name right, ever. So that was the first thing I go to and look, and I'm like, okay, how'd you spell my name? And I look, and I'm like, well, you guys did a good job, because you spelled my name right. One of my recent publications did not, and I actually had to message them after publication. Thankfully, it was online only, and I was just like, hey guys, you left a letter off the end of my name, and of course they fix it, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but I never hold a grudge. I mean, my name's been published out there with misspelled in the past, but I'm like, whatever, it's still me. People know that it's me. It happens. But the editors, like I said, they're great. They send out proof copies. They are in touch with the authors. And I ended up getting an email from them yesterday, actually. And it was basically saying, thank you for being one of 4 fiction contributors. And they wanted to nominate my piece for an award for upcoming debut fiction writers. And just to be nominated for this award would be such an honor, like an immense honor. And unfortunately I had to pass up, because the guidelines were it had to be my first fiction publication in any magazine, in any journal, the first edited piece that I've ever had, like, out in circulation. And I was like, unfortunately, I've had over, like, 70 pieces of work published, not all of it fiction, though lately most of my work being published is fiction instead of poetry, which I find interesting. But I had to pass it up, and I was like, I'm an established writer. I'm sorry. Like, thank you for considering me, though. Like, that's an honor in itself. Like, I don't know, if it was my first time piece, I absolutely would have taken that up, and just to say that I was nominated for it would, I mean, that's the world. But unfortunately, I had to pass that opportunity up, because it's not my first piece, and, you can't lie about that. So again, one last time, I'm going to plug Nevermore from Nightingale and Sparrow. They have so many other anthologies out. Like I said, they have chapbooks out. I highly recommend looking into them. Highly recommend picking up this issue. Either ebook, their online edition, or pick up the print copy for yourself. Like I said, it's beautiful to have. The stories are amazing. The art in there, the photos, really nice. And like I said, every purchase really helps them out with being able to keep doing what they're doing for their authors. So yeah, this video ended up being longer than I intended, but I had a lot to talk about with Nevermore because to me it had more of a story behind it and in that publishing process. So I think the next piece that I'm going to end up talking about in the following video will be the one that also came out on Halloween, which is my piece Fireflies through Portland Magazine. And very exciting. I really love that piece. And I really love that magazine, and they're quite a big name magazine, actually. They're online only. That's the only downfall. I really can't show you anything physical, but I can include the links for you guys to check it out. So the links for Nevermore will be included below, along with their website, so you guys can check out everything that they do. You can check out their chapbooks, you can check out their other anthologies, and their calls for submissions, because I do believe that they're going to be open for submissions in a few weeks. I believe it's for chapbooks again, but they do have more anthologies planned for the future. So definitely check them out. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thank you for stopping by and listening again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!